So there's a lot of pomp and circumstance in this. You know, it's funny because sometimes people don't like that. But God is that way. He likes order, but he also has a design to things. He has his way, and it's going to be his way, you guys, not ours.
That's right. That's
And
right.
that's really, this is really what it is about. This is about his way, not ours. He understands something we don't understand.
Right.
And we'll get into that a little bit more. So John begins to weep because they're all asking, who is worthy? The throne room is literally asking this question, who's worthy of opening this scroll? Who's worthy of breaking these seals? And they declare no one is but the Lamb. No one is but the Lion. I love what the angel says to him. John is literally weeping and grieving. And the Amplified it says, and I wept audibly and bitterly because no one was fit to open the scroll or to inspect it. No one was fit. I thought that was really good words to say. You know, we often in our humanity like to think that we're good enough to do anything. And the truth is, we will never measure up to good enough. Mm-hmm. Not God's kind of good enough. There's none of us that measure up to that. And so much of humanity right now, we were talking about this at Tea with Me, so much of our striving in science and technology and all that is to make ourselves our own God. Is actually to make us worthy enough to just kind of control our own lives. To literally leave him out of it. But here is something that nobody is good enough to touch. But the one who earned it.
Yeah.
And there's only one who ever earned it because of the sacrifice that he gave.
That's right.
And so so John literally gets this moment of grief that hits him. And he weeps. This isn't like a little tear came down his cheek.
No.
He weeps, sobbing. And I wept audibly and bitterly.
Yeah.
I thought that was really descriptive.
That's good.
But right here, John's about to have a new revelation. Because like I said, Jesus came as a friend. He came as a human being. God came as a man. Now I have to stop there for a second because I told my mom, I said, this is going to come out in pieces. But there's teaching that's coming. There's revelation that's coming out where there is going to be a battle. The next battle that the church is going to face is the argument of whether or not the God that we serve is the same God that the Jews, certain Jews, serve, or other people, because our God became flesh. And they're going to argue that. And they're going to argue it through different ways, and we're going to talk about this more. It's important to understand our God became flesh.
100% of it.
100%. He was 100% God and 100% flesh. Because listen, there is a battle going on about that issue right there.
Yes.
And if you know, you got to know that, because the Jesus that we serve is 100% God, 100% man. But John had to get a different revelation. See, he'd never seen Jesus in his element. He'd seen Jesus in his element.
Oh.
But he'd never seen Jesus at the throne room in his element. So here's what this angel says. They're the elder. The elder says to John not to weep. And he gets this revelation because the elder describes Jesus as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, the King of Kings. He describes him differently than John had ever seen him. And all of a sudden, Jesus went from just being a friend who died on the cross, because remember, John was at the cross with Jesus. Remember that. John was the one who put his head on his chest, on his shoulder at the Last Supper. He was the closest to him.
Right.
He was there at the transfiguration. Even when they saw him in glory, they still didn't see him like this.
Right.
It still was not the same. And John, even as close as he was with Jesus, still had a revelation to get, to see him as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. But when Jesus comes out, John still doesn't see the lion. He has to first see the lamb. See, the elder had revelation of both. John didn't get to see that first. The reason why, and I kept researching this and looking at this, I said, Lord, why? Because the lamb always comes before the lion. The lamb has to do with the scroll. Jesus didn't earn that scroll by conquering and being a lion. He earned the scroll by being a lamb and laying down his life. So the reason why John had to see him in the form of a lamb was because he had to see what gave him the right to have it. Why did he get the right? Why was he the only one that could touch it? Why was he the only one who could pop open those seals and read it? Why is he the only one who could do this? Because he was the lamb, the sacrificial lamb. And so he sees him as a lamb slain. Though the lamb had been slain, it stood up. This is very interesting to me. And it remained standing. This is a clear picture of Christ's resurrection from the dead. That though he was slain, he stood up. Though the lamb's death had occurred at a previous point in history, the effects of that death remained, and hence Jesus' sacrifice is powerful today, just as powerful today as it was the day that he died and arose. A lamb. When John turned, he saw not a lion like the elder's announcement, but he saw a lamb. According to prior historical fact, for the Lion of Judah has to come after the lamb. Because of the purchasing and of redemption that Jesus had to do in order to get this scroll, this book back. Now, there's a lot of scholars say that this book is the rights and the deeds to the earth. They talk about this being, this is the ownership of everything. It's the title deed. You know, when you buy your house and you get your title, or you buy a car and you get your title, this is that title deed. So the only one who could open it and the only one who was allowed to read it was somebody who had sacrificed themselves for it, because it was sealed.